So one of the things we wanted to talk to, as Carlos mentioned today, is about CalCloud and what we're doing today. One of the things we're going to talk to you about is really our strategic vision and approach for CalCloud and how we're moving forward. Not really how we're handling infrastructure as a service, but also software as a service and platform, and the opportunities we're looking at really now as a hybrid cloud moving forward. So really the agenda is going to touch on expanding the cloud portfolio and talking to not only how, why, where, and when, but also addressing the questions that are coming for that as well. So we think that that's really important to put a comprehensive package in place, but really transparent and really have open dialogue with you as we move forward with some of these issues and provide the necessary information. Also, questions and answers are going to be very comprehensive. We have a lot of questions and answers that Carlos mentioned that we took to you beforehand. There was even questions and answers that have come in directly from the community that we also wanted to document as well moving forward. And then next steps in the process. Our goal really is to have open dialogue for communications, so we're going to talk about forums moving forward and how we're going to continue to engage the community to ensure that it's a public-private partnership. So really the mission, as mentioned, now CalCloud is a line of business for the Department of Technology and how we want to manage this. So as we talked about earlier, it's important to be strategic before we can be tactical. And really our mission is to offer cost-effective cloud solutions that will provide customers convenient, on-demand access to a shared pool of configurable resources. Our vision is to be a catalyst for emerging in new technology and delivery models by delivering efficient, flexible, and secure cloud services to all customers. And finally, our goal is to drive customer adoption of CalCloud and through new workload and business opportunities. So really this map here is really our technological shot at CalCloud strategy and governance, and you should have all gotten one when you came in the door that you captured in front of you that has the CalCloud strategy and governance piece on the front, and then the process for how we're going to onboard vendors through the procurement area. So really what this map speaks to is our technology roadmap and how we're going to get there from here. And you can see the technology roadmap is going to be very important because it's going to lay out the fundamental building blocks of CalCloud, both now and into the future. And then also, what are the vital signs that we're really playing within the process? So we've managed now and we have an effective governance framework in place. You heard Carlos talk about customers. Well, those customers are part of customer adoption and driving and helping us establish key priorities for CalCloud. And that's really addressing through our technology director, our state operations for executive leadership processes, and our CalCloud project team. And what we've come up with is really an adoption strategy on how do you get there from here, because it's very important that you have a strategy. I think one of the misnomers about cloud is build it and they will come, and that once you book business today, you onboard tomorrow. That's not the right process to do business. So what we've laid out is really a management structure type framework on looking at degrees of criticality, from easier things that require less intensive resources to adopt to mission critical items. And we're going to talk more about that and what that entails moving forward. And also, what are the customer benefits? We've talked about customer benefits here to drive standardization across the industry, to lower costs, to come up with a total cost of ownership for hardware and software as we move forward, and to have an efficient and more effective platform to do business here in the state of California. And then finally, organizational management. It is people and process that effectuate clear technologies. And how are we going to get there from here? And really taking the time to work with our customers, ensuring that there's the right processes available to deliver technology. And that's very important as we take this approach. So we wanted you to really see now that we're managing this as a new line of business. We're thinking strategically first before we act tactically, and we have a good process in place with acceptable levels of governance moving forward. So when we look at CalCloud right now and the suite of service offerings by the Department of Technology, and incidentally for those, CDT is our new acronym for California Department of Technology. Just to let you know, I know we've been many places for many faces, but this is our new acronym moving forward. So obviously we offer infrastructure as a service, and that's on-prem with our partner IBM at the State Data Center. We're offering email services within our State Data Center today. And then what we're going to talk to you mainly about is our vendor-hosted subscription services moving forward. So those are the core competencies right now that we're looking at and moving forward with CalCloud. So really one of the things that we also did that I want to make mention of is we renegotiated the contract with IBM to reduce the rate structure, implement and enhance levels of security, and really expand our service options based on customer feedback. So one of the things I did want to address in terms of the contract amendment is there's been some information going about in the community that there was a balloon payment due to IBM within this contract. I'm here to say that that's not true. It's a subscription-based service. It's based on volume, so as we onboard customers into the system, that's how we pay. So the state did not preconceive or deliver any other additional cost to the vendor for these types of services. So it's really pay-as-you-go in terms of a subscription service. So I wanted to clarify that, right away in terms of those who are wondering about the contract, both the original contract and the new contract that's been rebid and enhanced. Also, too, providing a cloud-based hosted solution at California Technology Data Centers, a self-based web portal for ease of use and provisioning. These are very important to application developers to condition web services quickly on the fly, rather than having to stand up your own infrastructure in your own data centers, which takes sometimes weeks, months, or an additional dollar allocation that they don't foresee. Also, too, rapidly provisioning is talked about and releasing virtual servers on a pay-as-you-go basis and taking advantage of that basically environment as you move forward. So very key competencies and very critical to run and manage the state's enterprise infrastructure as we see it today. Can I add my IIS? So some of the questions we wanted to talk about, and again have come up, is your infrastructure service to CalCloud today or sell it separately? So obviously we have an infrastructure as a service through CalCloud, which is our IBM service contract at the data center. Our preferences today is that departments use that. If IIS is in CalCloud and it's not technically feasible or there's requirements that specifically align with the customer's need, then customers are free to seek other options in accordance with our CalCloud First policy. So we wanted to address that as well. Again, we want to bring customer service value to our customers and ensure that we're managing the business impact. CalCloud is our first policy, and again, we want to move forward and encourage people to use our infrastructure as a service. And as Carlos talked about, if commercial cloud services are not technically feasible, then a department can pursue other non-cloud technology. But bottom line, we want to drive people to enterprise service offerings and standards using our cloud first. And then we'll take a look at that. So that's really our exception process of how we're looking at infrastructure as a service and how we're treating that through the CalCloud First policy. So CalCloud portfolio status. So obviously why vendor-hosted subscription services? And this is one of the things we're trying to adopt is an enterprise service model in the state because we think it's beneficial. We think it drives efficiencies and effectiveness across the state and also to our counties, cities, and other municipalities. So very important in terms of that perspective moving forward. So really ability to leverage department's data center budget line item. This is really important because this is a service request process that they have with the data center that they already have built-in budgeted dollars in their basically budget on an ongoing basis to leverage technology moving forward. It basically builds and establishes enterprise service levels, so the chance for us to do service level agreements and bind those where the department can adhere to and again drive enterprise standards for ensuring what gets measured gets managed. Better understanding of the state's portfolio for subscription services. Again, and getting us to an inventory list and an understanding of how we're standardized across the state. Ease of customer onboarding. It's a process that's already predefined within the data center. How we do contracts, it's easier for both the customer and vendor to do business and get the necessary business value in an expedient manner. Also, too, compliant with our CalCloud First policy, SAM 4983 and Government Code 115.45.48. So really this is a part of AB 24.8, which was the original consolidation language that was out there. So it speaks to that in terms of documenting what we're trying to do. Future expansion, we want expansion services for customer demand. So what we're going to talk about today is there's some priorities that came from our customers. And these are the first level of priorities that we're going to deal with and address on how to onboard into our vendor-hosted subscription services. And then prioritize future services by lines of business set by our customers. So we're going to do this in kind of an incremental phased approach because it's the only way without putting too much pressure on our procurement organization to do all this at one time. So we're going to do it in incremental phases. And we're going to talk more about what that is and how to do that. So this is where our VHSS lines of business are. And as you can see, customers have identified these lines of business to focus on. And initially, lines of business will be based on customer interests. So that's our state community that we're looking at, and also our cities and counties and municipalities as we attract and onboard those folks into the state procurement process as well. And so you can see that starting with HR tools, that's an area that's been identified. And within HR tools, some of the requests that we got were payroll, timekeeping, benefits, and succession planning. Those are some of the areas that we'll be focusing on within HR tools and talking about publishing criteria. Identity management, electronic signature, and dual-factor authentication are areas that have been identified as needs within the community. Learning management system, as you can see in the right-hand quadrant of the tree. So those areas are basically training nominations, transcripts, and catalog information. Collaboration tools, we're looking at video conferencing, web conferencing, and file sharing have been areas that have been identified that we've gotten lots of interest from the community that they want to see and want an opportunity to take advantage of your services. And then finally, CRM with contract management and case management. So those are really the 5 areas we're going to focus on first. Once we get through this area and start onboarding vendors, then we'll focus on other priorities as identified by our customers moving forward. So who is using CalCloud now? And this just gives you an idea of where the adoption is coming with CalCloud and the organizations that are using and provisioning our services through the state portal today. And it gives you an idea. It's a fast-growing area. I know we had 18 to 19 today. We have 28. We've added the Board of Equalization. We're on our way to adding California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. So there's some bigger organizations that are now adopting and moving forward with the CalCloud model, whether it be through our infrastructure as a service or our vendor-hosted subscription services. And we hope by basically expanding adoption in terms of what we're doing now, that this list will continue to grow and we'll be able to add more of our city and county partners, municipalities, and other of our major state departments, again, based on our cloud-first policy. So assessment and migration opportunities, and really wanted to speak to this in terms of what this is. And this is really a chance as we look at major systems and system integration components in town, as they're interested in moving from CalCloud from other service contracts or being hosted on their own premises. We wanted to do an RFO to really look and assess their current environment. They need a roadmap, and we want to make sure there's a transitory roadmap on how to make sure that their services get into CalCloud. Department of Technology is going to be submitting a request for offer to bring in vendors through an MSA contract to really address assessments and assess migration activities. And we're going to provide these migrations to CalCloud and infrastructure as a service. So we've received a lot of input and information from the community on the right types of information, so we're incorporating that into the RFO and hope to send that out here very soon, within the next week or two. So you'll have that and you'll have the opportunity to bid on that. And those templates will be required, so we'll lay out what the criteria is to do that. We hope to bring in at least 6 migration vendors to qualify under that scenario. And I know our procurement people will talk more about that and what the levels of detail and interest are on how you engage in that particular process. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to turn this over again to Jim Butler, who's the Deputy Director of Procurement Division at Department of General Services, and Marlon Paulo, who's our branch chief for acquisition at California Department of Technology. They're going to dive into how do you qualify, what is the level of entry, and what is the necessary criteria moving forward. And then when they're finished, I'm going to come back up and entertain some more questions that the vendor community had on working with vendor-hosted solutions and also our infrastructure services level of business.